of attracting investment. It forms part of knowledge creation in making sure that the creation of knowledge within these spaces comes from the people who actually have the context within which these idioms and terms were developed and what their link is to the heritage of those respective communities. And they are in a better position, they are better placed to tell us if these colors, let's say of the Ndebele culture, are placed in this way, why are they placed in that way, and what is the link to the heritage of the Ndebele people? If Isigaba, for the Zulu culture, is worn by women of this specific age, why is it this way? Why is the pattern in this way? Why is it worn by women in this specific age group? And why is it specifically made of that material? And what is the link to the heritage of the Zulu people? It's a wide range. Our institution has a very wide mandate, which cuts across different sectors, actually all sectors in South Africa. Because in every sector there is a heritage aspect, especially with regards to tourism, education. There is a lot that we do. And we have different projects that we run that speak to our mandate and how we fulfill it with reference to the South African community and the international community.
So I assume places like Wakoni Malapa are areas where you go and maintain and see if the actual culture of Bapedi is still maintained.
Yes, but we look at particularly the heritage aspect of it. We don't maintain the structure itself. That's a competency of another institution. But we deal with the research itself of the heritage of Bapedi, the conservation of that heritage, the content of the heritage of the research aspect of Bapedi, and we disseminate it and we sell it to the international community. And also the listing of World Heritage Sites. I don't know if people are aware that we have a recent World Heritage Site that is the Makonja Mountain in Barberton. It's a competency of the National Heritage Council to take names of places to the UNESCO body, the UN institution that deals with World Heritage Sites. So it's one branch within the National Heritage Council is the World Heritage Specialist Unit, which deals with that. So every World Heritage Site that is in South Africa is under our mandate and was listed because of the competency of people who work at the National Heritage Council.
This is really incredible. And if you're a matriculant and you're listening, you can still get to that stage. You can still go to university. I think you can also study law and also, I believe, anthropology.
Of course. And I think one of the most amazing things for me in being in this position is that it assists young people to see that you can make a successful career out of heritage, out of culture, out of tradition, and customary law. And that you can be a person that coexists within a space where you live according to both customary law and civil laws and make the plurality that is existent work for you and not against you. I
mean, listening to you, I'm already inspired. I was already passionate about African customary law, and I don't know why we call it African customary law if we were in Africa. But I think there's still a lot more that people can learn from you and your team that that needs even more time. I mean, we won't be able to finish it if you profile more of your work on time, but I think there's need for more conscientizing of what you do and how you can assist people. Let's take a short break and then let's take a short break and then when we come back we continue more on the topic. You are listening to One Nation FM on 88.9 FM.
Fofo Ardudishaneng Mahua Ratamai.
Our monna or Ratamaya with tires like that.
I want to buy new tires, but they're expensive and the second-hand ones don't seem to last. Kingadi.
Mon, did you say second-hand tires? Do you know how dangerous that could be? Haven't you heard of Tire Rack Download Zone Polokwane? They sell the best quality tire brands at affordable prices.
Mon, are you serious?
Serious. Visit Tire Rack Download Zone 92 Dell Street Polokwane. For all your fitting and wheel alignment needs, call them on 015-297-3000. Download. Be who you want to be, go where you want to go. It's your journey.
Live from the capital city of Limpopo, this is One Nation FM on 88.9.
All right, you are back on 88.9 FM. This is the Robert's View with myself, Isaac Wagamuselana. The time is just 5 minutes after 6 o'clock. I'm not alone. I'm on the line joined by Dr. Advocate Kagiso Maphalle. Maphalle is a very famous surname for me because I have a best friend who I grew up with by such a name. I think he's your cousin, right?
Who are we talking about?
Harry.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so he's an interesting individual. I think the surname has a lot of awesome people. But I'll tell you a story about Harry, what he did for me one day. We're still talking about customary law. And when we spoke on the phone earlier, my concern is what I generally see in this province and in the High Court, because I practice a lot in the Limpopo Provincial Division here in Polokwane. And every Friday, or today, from today and Friday, there'll be urgent applications in court, people fighting for a deceased body. And when you hear and you listen to the facts, they'll tell you there are two wives involved. The other one was married culturally. He left, he went to work. And then there's a civil one. He found that he married and registered. And the civil one was about to continue with the funeral preparations for the next day. And then that's when they're making an urgent application. I understand men are trash. I get it. I'm there. But then how can, as a woman, empower yourself with the law? How, what does the law say? Because, of course, if there's an urgent application, somebody will oppose it because they don't understand the law, I guess. But what does the law say on customary law? Let's start first with the validity of getting married in terms of recognition of Customary Law Act.
Okay, so the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act 120 of 1998 is the piece of legislation in South Africa that addresses the validity of customary marriages. It deals with how customary marriages are entered into and concluded in terms of customary law. Now, there are a lot of criticisms against this piece of legislation because many of the scholars within the African customary law feel that this piece of legislation is not a true representation of how marriages are entered into and celebrated in terms of customary law. I'll start by saying that I'm glad that this piece of legislation exists because specifically it was meant to address the issue that you just raised about there being two marriages that a husband has entered into, and one of the marriages is seen to be more superior to the one. Now, the reason why it is seen to be more superior to the one is that in previous times, and unfortunately even still today, people enter into customary marriages in terms of customary law. The negotiation between two families, and then there's the transfer of the bride and the celebration of the customary marriage, either through a traditional wedding or whatever celebration that applies within the tribe, within the culture and clan of the respective spouses. But now, there was never a formal registration at Home Affairs of these marriages, meaning that a wife who is married in terms of customary law never had a marriage certificate with which they would use to prove, firstly, the existence of the marriage between herself and her husband and the validity of the marriage. So most times, the situation would be that Isaac from Makotopo would marry Kagiso and in terms of customary law and then move to work to Johannesburg or whichever other area where work could be found. And once they arrive in those places, they would meet a specific person and then marry them in terms of civil law. Now, in terms of civil law, you are issued a marriage certificate, and most of the times when these marriages are concluded, it's in community of property. So when a husband passes away, the person with whom he was married to, in terms of the civil law, is able to prove the existence of the marriage because there is a piece of paper that confirms that herself and the deceased were married. You understand? Which is something that in customary law did not previously exist. So one of the things that this piece of legislation aims to do is to put customary marriages and civil marriages on equal footing.
Yeah.
So that people who are married in terms of customary law are not at a disadvantage simply because they do not have a piece of paper that confirms the existence of their marriage.
And you
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you put it correctly to say confirm. When we started speaking, we talked about how this piece of paper is to the advancement of women's right. And sometimes most of those women from the rural areas, especially in deep rural KZN, don't even know anything about registration. This man may know, but not even do it. Now, the law says if you don't register it, it does not mean it's illegal. So long as you can get people who can testify that there was that celebration.
Of course, yes. Section 4 of the Act says that non-registration does not invalidate the marriage itself. But as we know, every single place, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's your provident fund, whether it's your pension fund, they require proof of existence of the marriage.
True.
From the person who is claiming by means of a piece of paper, which is the marriage certificate. So the people who enter into customary marriages primarily reside in rural communities where, number one, they do not have access to the courts. So they are not aware of the processes that need to take place in order for them to receive what is due to them. Two, they are not even aware of this piece of legislation 18 years after its enactment and what the impact is on their lives, on their children's lives, and on issues of their succession and inheritance. Three, they don't have the relevant information that can empower them on what to do if they find themselves in a situation where a husband is deceased and there is an existence of a spouse that they were not aware of, whose marriage was concluded after the customary marriage. So those are issues that, unfortunately, the legislation, I don't know whether it's an issue of not foreseeing it or in the implementation phase, they fail to take the relevant information to the people who need it the most. It's an issue that we are still struggling with, and the only way for it to be solved is for people to be aware of this piece of legislation and how it impacts on their lives, and how customary marriages with more than one partner should be entered into in terms of this act, and how divorces are meant to take place. However, going back to what I said in the beginning, the criticisms against this piece of legislation are around the fact that it's not a true representation of how customary marriages are entered into and concluded in terms of customary law in rural communities, and also how they are dissolved.
No,
and so it's that situation where a piece of legislation does not speak to the people it's supposed to govern, and it's a problem that many pieces of legislation in the field of African customary law have, and the challenges that need to be addressed.
Before we go into the issue of dissolution of this marriage, which is like a key issue, unfortunately I have a personal story regarding it. One thing that I know that people watch every day is telenovelas, and they believe they could learn from them. But I was very angry this other day, and I was watching a show that recently people are proudly saying it has more viewers ever, when they said people can conclude a civil marriage, two people, so one man can marry two women in civil law. And I was very angry because I believed you had an opportunity to teach people. So you could have just made the marriage to be in customary law so you can get another one. Then the following day you can show the process of how this person can go to the High Court to say I'm marrying two women and teach people. And I don't know, is this something that we can do as practitioners, and especially, in your department, to I don't know, call media people to order to say, "Hi, book." That's not how you teach people. Is there any way? Because those I believe TV is best to conscientize people.
I think the first point of departure would be to contact the South African Broadcasting Corporation to say that there needs to be tighter policies on the checks and balances regarding the research of issues that pertain to customary law, and for cultural advisors and experts to be part of the script writers or script reviewers, perhaps. But it's something that we can only take up if complaints are perhaps maybe brought to us and we can forward it.